So good day, one and all. My name is Geoffrey Edwards. Welcome to the second episode of Futsal868 Corner Talks, brought to you by the Futsal Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Happy Resurrection Sunday to all our viewers. Today signifies the ability of God to have the massive tombstone of fear and dislocation caused by COVID-19. He has replaced it with love, hope, joy, and fulfillment. Today's guest is Mr. Keith Tozer. We at Futsal868 refer to him as Mr. Futsal USA. So I would like to say welcome, Mr. Tozer, to Futsal868 Corner Talks. We expect to have more guests online soon because I switched it up a little bit. I was supposed to start at 4 exact. I think that we got our times a little mixed. So we expect persons to come in, trickling as time goes by. But we want to say thank you very much for being a part of it. I was a part of your show, your podcast a while ago.
Yeah.
And for the viewers of this great man, I want to take a moment before he even speaks about himself. I want to take a moment to be able to highlight who Mr. Tozer is. And his accolades reads significant. And in taking this moment, Mr. Tozer, I want to say again, thank you for having us. But we'll be putting the screen up as we go along. So, Mr. Tozer, the floor is yours. Can you tell us more about yourself, your background, who you are, why futsal, and that list, that extensive list that is going to grow even more as time goes by. Tell us a little bit more as regards to Keith Tozer.
Well, first of all, Geoffrey, let me say I'm honored and proud to be on your show. I want to say happy Easter to all the listeners and to everyone in Trinidad Tobago. I hope everyone is safe and well during this global pandemic. And it's great to see you again. As you said, you and your national team coach, Constantine Connie, was on my podcast. You said all those accolades, as we know in sports, are not it's we. I was just fortunate enough to be in a group of great men and women who had the same commitment, drive, passion, desire to kind of sacrifice for the good of the whole in order to create a winning culture, a system. So I started in this country just like everybody else, played baseball, played football, American football, played hockey. I then fell in love with the game of soccer. I played in high school, then I went to college, then I turned professional right out of college. And my pathway kind of went from outdoor soccer to indoor soccer in the Major Indoor Soccer League. I was the first player drafted in that league off the Olympic team. I played many years in the MISL. I became a player coach, then I became a coach. And during that time, I became the captain of the U.S. Futsal men's national team. Then that led me to become the head coach of the national team and travel the world. I'm a technical director of United States Youth Futsal, FIFA instructor, commissioner of a pro league. So I've just been really fortunate to be around so many great people.
It's interesting that you mentioned team, and I'm very proud to hear you speak about team, Keith. Being a coach, the most winningest coached in U.S. indoor soccer, football as we call it. Tell us your coaching philosophies and principles that you have garnered over the years whilst doing leadership in football at Starbuconi Milan. That was a very interesting sub-module where we learned many coaches have different leadership styles for which they implement. And considering that you have won almost everything in U.S. indoor football and been a national coach for over 20 years, what is your leadership style and what are your coaching philosophies?
You know, that's such a great question, Jeffrey. And my philosophy and methodology changed dramatically from the first time I started coaching to where I sit today. And I think to be a successful coach, you need to adapt to everything around you. As a FIFA instructor, you're taught when you go to a different country, you have to adapt and you have to keep changing things. And I think you have to do that as a coach. I love these two words that I'm going to say to you. I think a coach first needs to build a culture within his club, his team. And a culture, I mean, yes, what you do on the field, but you want to build a culture of men or women who have character, who are there for the good of the whole and not for the good of only themselves. Loyalty, commitment, hard work, passion, all the adjectives and ingredients that make a good man and women. I think if you build a culture like that, I think that's a huge stepping stone. And then if once you have your culture, you build a system. In American football, you have the New England Patriots. Other than the Patriot fans, not many teams like them. And the one reason they don't like them is that they basically win all the time. But they've built a culture and they've built the system. It's kind of like what we did with my professional team, the Milwaukee Wave. Everybody that came to play for the team had those ingredients, Jeffrey. They sacrificed. They gave up their individualism. They were men and women of character. They went the extra yard. They sweated the details. So I think when you get people together, that you have a system of play and they understand and believe how you're going to play, and you build a culture around that, that makes for a successful group of people.
So with that being said, Keith, tell us your highest moment and your lowest moment in your coaching history, as well as if that correlates to being during the men's national futsal program of 20 years that you headed.
You know, I've been blessed in so many ways. There's been so many great moments, Jeffrey. When I stood on the sidelines as the captain of the national team, as a player, and I heard my country's national anthem, I'll never forget. When I stood on the sidelines as a coach of the national team and heard my national anthem, I'll never forget. The moment we won a gold medal in the CONCACAF championships in Costa Rica, and then won it again twice, were great moments. But I think my biggest moments, and I have to be honest, I brought a player from Seattle who was an Argentinian player, Marcelo Fontana. And we had already won 3 championships in Milwaukee. And his first year in Milwaukee, he lost in the finals. His second year, he lost in the final. His third year, he lost in the final. He was on his knees crying after the game. And he said, "Coach, I'll never be a champion. We failed." And I said, "No, we didn't fail. It was a result." I said, "One day you will be a champion. Keep believing." And a year later, we won a championship. And I'll never forget that moment. And I'll never forget the moment when he hugged me and all of his teammates and his families and friends. So I just can't put one thing on that was the best. I think one of the worst is some coaches, including myself, we coach from how we were coached. And at the beginning, I was different. I was a little tough, and it was my way and not that way. And I learned to open up. In fact, a goalkeeper of mine, Victor Noguera, really helped me out, and he was the best goalkeeper in the history of indoor, where I started reading books and I started to really, really care more about people and the players. but I was tough, but I learned and moved forward.
So with that being said, it's very interesting that I want to harp on this 20 years of being the men's U.S. national futsal team coach. For those 20 years, you have seen many World Cups. How has CONCACAF teams fared? How do you think that CONCACAF teams can do better? And how have you seen the progression of the global futsal landscape through the evolution of the FIFA Futsal World Cup?
That is a great question. In 1996, when it was the first CONCACAF qualifications for a World Cup that you actually had to go through. Prior to that, teams that went to a World Cup were just asked to go. So in Guatemala in 96 was the first time that you had to actually go through, the group play and go through the medal rounds. We were fortunate enough to win that and went on to the World Cup in Spain. But at that moment, Jeffrey, indoor soccer was huge, almost as big as the NBA in the United States. And the Major League Soccer wasn't playing. So all the best American players were playing indoor. Indoor soccer was big. You were playing 50 games a year. So when we took a group of players to Guatemala, on the same side of the coin, futsal really wasn't professional around the world. It was kind of like amateur players playing. So in 96 and in 92 and in 2000, the United States could compete because all of our best players were playing indoor, and I could get them on the national team. Spring forward, we won again in 2004. Then Guatemala and Costa Rica, Carlos Quiroz and Eduardo from both those countries started professional futsal leagues in their two countries. They quickly became the predominant teams in CONCACAF. Now, if you look at futsal around the world, the best league right now, one of the top leagues is Spain, right? LNFS. Great professional leagues in Russia, great in Italy, in Iran has a great league, Portugal, and the list goes on and on. The top 10 or 12 countries in the world at the World Cup have professional futsal leagues. So it's basically your players are playing all year long, professional futsal, and then a qualifier comes, they can go and play. Where in the United States, we don't have a professional league yet. That's what Costa Rica and Guatemala did so good, is that they did that. Now you have Ecuador, you have El Salvador, you have Panama, Cuba, now that are beginning to have higher leagues. And I am so happy for Trinidad that your men's national team coach, Connie Constant, who's a good friend of mine, is taking over the team. And I think he's going to do wonders for your country. So the sport has really grown in the CONCACAF region. And I think once the professional league in the United States starts, that players from Trinidad and Guatemala and Cuba and all the other countries can come to the United States maybe and play 40 to 50 games a year, then go back to their country, similar to outdoor. I think that will help. The global game, I mean, if you look at UEFA, Champions League, not only for men, but U19s. They have UEFA Euros. They have Asia Championship. Women are playing. The Iranian women won the last AFC Championship. So this sport is really booming at a fast pace around the country, around the world.
So it's interesting that you mentioned Connie. So let's just, he says hello to yourself and me.
Yeah. I just got off the phone with him.
Hi, Connie. How are you doing? It's interesting that you mentioned that because we in Trinidad and Tobago have not as yet started a futsal league, and I'll take this moment to tell you why. Given the fact that we are young and the sport of futsal is young as well, we are young as an organization, and the sport of futsal is young in Trinidad and Tobago. We are right now in the sensitization phase. what would you say to us as an organization with the history that you have given in terms of CONCACAF? How would you see us growing with the continuation of our sensitization phase? And when do you think is the right time to have a league?
You know what? In 1990, I was coaching a team called the Atlanta Attack. And someone came up to me and said, Coach, you have to look at this player from Erskine College. And that player happened to be Brian Haynes. And Brian Haynes is from Trinidad and Tobago. I drafted him. He became Rookie of the Year that first year. He went on to star in indoor soccer. He then starred for FC Dallas in Major League Soccer. I also brought in a Garth Polonez, another Trinidad player. Those two men were men of character, but they were special players. Your country has the players. I know you have players playing in Europe and other countries. I think the grassroots that you've done outdoors is wonderful. I think if you just start youth programs for futsal, and obviously we don't need a lot of space to do that, and at the same time you start referee education for futsal, and at the same time you start coaching education for futsal. I think with the youth programs and then maybe a league, a country tournament to kick it off, and then a men's league, I think in a short period of time, you will see a lot of improvement. I think it'd be great. I mean, if you look at the Solomon Islands, Jeffrey, in 2007, the Solomon Islands FA got together and said, are we really going to do anything big in outdoor game? They said, well, maybe not now, but maybe we can make a difference in futsal. We can get young people off the street. We can create a different player. And, you know, in 2008, they actually qualified in 1 year. They took 25 of their best players in the island. In 1 year, they qualified for the 2008 World Cup in Brazil. I think they lost the game 22-0 to Brazil one game. However, those men and some other men for the next 4 years trained and played. In 2008, they won Oceania. 2012 and 2016, and recently just won Oceania again and qualified #1 out of their region. And some of their players have gone to play outdoor football now. And I think what happened is that a lot of other countries said the same thing. Why don't we bring futsal? I think that's what's going to happen to you. And I think you got the man in Connie to do it.
I want to say thank you very much for that. And it's just for our viewers to understand what the association has been doing in Trinidad and Tobago. In September, we conducted a FIFA futsal coaching course where we had over 30 persons qualified. Mr. Brent Rahim was in Trinidad and Tobago, along with instructor Graham Dell. For the last 2 years, we have been doing our Let's Play Futsal Caravan, where we have gone to secondary schools throughout the Twin Island state. Before COVID-19, we were planning to execute our youth tournament. And given the successful screening sessions nationwide for the men's national futsal team, we have a database of over 200 young persons who we definitely will be working on to be a part of our soon-to-be futsal league. With that being said, we are working on launching our Futsal868 Youth Academy. We have been doing a lot of work with a consultant out of Ireland. And I will put in a shameless plug here and ask Keith to assist me. And we continue along our strategic plan that we created last year. A 5-year plan that we created last year, and I must say that we are following exactly the trend that you are speaking about. Slow and steady is the ship that we go. Before we continue, let's take a pause, and we have Mr. Keith Tozer here with us. Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago. Indirectly, Keith,
You know?
So yes, we are here with Mr. Keith Tozer, the second guest of the Futsal 868 Corner Talks. Mr. Tozer, for those who are joining us, I'm going to give you a little bit about this great gentleman, as I call him, Mr. Futsal USA. Mr. Tozer is one of the most successful coaches in North American professional indoor soccer. 20 years as the head coach of the US Futsal men's team. Two-time CONCACAF champion, commissioner of the Professional Futsal League, the host of the World of Futsal podcast with over 100,000 viewers and counting in over 130 countries, the technical director of the US Youth Futsal, and a FIFA and CONCACAF Futsal Instructor. Keith, I want to jump straight into the Professional Futsal League because a lot of coaches in Trinidad Tobago, and also a lot of players, especially the stakeholder that are named players. We want to hear more about this Professional Futsal League. And I would like you to zoom in directly for the opportunities that Trinbagonian players can have to be able to ply their trade in the United States of America.
Yeah, we started the PFL about 4 years ago. Basically, Donnie Nelson, who is the president of the Dallas Mavericks basketball team, called me up and he said, "Hey, I might start an indoor team in Dallas. Would you like to be part of it?" And I said, "Well, I'm under contract right now in Milwaukee." I said, "But have you ever heard of the game of futsal?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, I just so happen to be playing France with the national team in Milwaukee. Why don't you come and see it? See for yourself." So he couldn't make it, but his daughter came, Christy. She loved it, went back to her father. Within a month, I was in Dallas. And Donnie, myself, and two other gentlemen, Michael Hitchcock, who owns part of a pro team in Trinidad, and another guy started the league. And it was going to be a regional league, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Houston. But then I called the Laker family, Jim Buss, and told him about it. And he said I would take 2 franchises. And I'm like, wow, you're going to take 2. And then Rob Andrews, who's part of our group, knew Barcelona, and they said they would be interested in coming in, and some other international teams. So we went from regional to national to international. So right now we're still in the working process of getting everything together. Obviously, we need to create our own court system for boards. We need to have a referee program. We have no professional futsal referees in our country. Obviously, the players and coaches. So I think in the first phase of the PFL, it's going to be a huge opportunity for coaches and players around the world to come to the United States to play professional futsal with some of the best coaches in the world and alongside some of the best futsal players in the world. And similar to, outdoor football, Jeffrey, is that, a player from your country or my country might go play for Chelsea. And then when he's called up for the national team, he's got obviously that experience. I see the same thing happening, is that in the United States, players will be able to get experience during the pro league to help bolster the national team. And players from Mexico and Trinidad and from whoever can play in that league. And when they get called up, they'll go back to their country. And maybe in that time frame, other countries will start their own professional futsal league, and this thing will continue to grow and grow and grow.
So if you would go straight into coaching education, together with Sender, you have been producing a lot of videos as regards to coaching. And I know that we have a WhatsApp group in Trinidad and Tobago with the 30+ coaches, and we are continuing to do coaching education in Trinidad and Tobago. What would you tell our coaches at the grassroots level to be able to get our kids involved in the sport of futsal? What would be your mentorship words to them?
I love that question, because I love this part of the game. Before I coached the match, before I managed the match, I have always thought that I love teaching. That's my passion. I love teaching. For the past 8 months, myself and a guy named Brian Katrine from US Youth Futsal, we have been developing the first level 1 license for futsal. That should be out in about a month. That's an online course. Methodology, terminology, animation, film, systems of play, offensive and defensive. A level 2 license. Also,
if I may, Keith, I would like to say openly, please remember to send us a copy of those links.
Yep, no problem.
We'll share with our people. Go ahead, sir.
We'll share that. So through United States Youth Futsal, we've created a level 1 online, 1 hour, a level online 2, 1 hour. Then there will be a state, which is 6 hours long, level 3. Level 4 is a national license. That's 16 hours. And then an international license, which is a week. So those will all be coming out. So to answer your first part of your question is that the level 1 and level 2 will be done hopefully within the next month and then out there. You can go to usyouthfutsal.com. UEFA, Jeffrey, I think, has done a remarkable job in futsal coaching education. Coaches in Trinidad can go to UEFA.com. That's UEFA.com. Go to the search bar and type in coaching education. They have their manual, which is an awesome program, on their website that you can download into a PDF. I highly recommend that. AFC, the Asia Federation, they have done a remarkable job also with their coaching. AFC.com. And YouTube's and the internet has been a great resource for coaching education. But I would say really quickly that UEFA.com, that manual, I think is great from the beginning. And it's about 100 pages long. It's pretty thorough. And then also when US Youth Futsal comes out with theirs, that would be great. And by the way, Jeffrey, I went to St. Vincent's about a year ago to teach a grassroots program. I've always wanted to come down to Trinidad. So when this pandemic goes away, I'd love to come down and visit you and Connie, and we'll do some teaching.
Definitely. And you all heard it first. Why are you letting the cat out of the bag, Keith, this evening? Are you coming from the tomb? But really, truly, it's interesting that you mentioned the UEFA, because and I would tell the general public this, which is something that we have spoken to our coaches about. The Futsal Association of Trinidad Tobago has made contact with the Irish FA as regards to getting our coaches across there to go to be licensed to go through the UEFA license program. That took us over a year of collaboration, given the fact that the Irish FA had to speak to UEFA to find out if non-Europeans could have accessed the course. So we are very much proud to announce that.
Fantastic.
And to let you know that your recommendations as regards to our coaches going out there and using the online program is something that I hope that they listen and they really take note of. With that being said, I want to have you differentiate between a coach who uses that material online and a coach who is certified or licensed. Tell me, is there a remarkable difference? Is there a difference at all? What do you consider a good futsal coach for the grassroots development?
There's conceptual coaches and there's cone coaches, and there's cone players and there's conceptual players. What I mean by that is some young players, if you put out cones and you have an activity or exercise and you're trying to teach them a technique or tactics through that exercise, and when they get to the game, they don't do anything of the activity. So they're a good activity cone player, but they're not a conceptual player. Then you have players that understand what the activity means to the game. So when they get to the game, they all of a sudden just blossom. And those kind of players, then you can continue to teach. Obviously, the other players will get it. The same thing, Jeffrey, happens, I think, in coaches. There are some coaches that understand how to put an activity from a book to a training field, but they don't really know how to transfer what that means to the game. I think when coaches do training courses in UEFA, for FIFA, for anywhere, I think part of it is they need to sit and watch youth players go through the activities in order for them to see it a different way, coach to player, instructor to player. But I also think coaches need to be involved in an activity so that they're able to demonstrate how the activity is supposed to go. I think when a coach has that ability to do stuff like that, then I think they become better. Here's my last point. I did a course, a seminar up in Montreal about 4 or 5 months ago, 250 coaches. And I asked the coaches, if you have a cell phone, please stand up. And 250 people stood up. Then I said, if you filmed yourself coaching a training session in the past year, stay standing. And 240 people sat down. I said, because of these things that we have, if you have a cell phone, is you ask someone, can you film me doing my training session? You learn so much from that because, Jeffrey, I think to be part of a successful coach is part of public speaking. I think a coach needs to take the knowledge in his head and put down how he's going to teach it. And the better that his players can understand that information in an easy, comfortable, safe environment, I think that's the key. So the more, and I remember the first time I filmed myself, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't talk loud enough. I talked too much. I said too many times. So I think if you put all that together in a nice jar, all those things we talked about, they're on their way to become a great coach.
So before we continue, you are viewing the Futsal 868 Corner Talks. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. So this is episode 2 of the Futsal 868 Corner Talks. We have with us Mr. Keith Tozer, presently the Commissioner of the Professional Futsal League, the Technical Director of US Youth Futsal, FIFA CONCACAF Futsal Instructor, Men's National Futsal Coach for over 20 years, 2-time CONCACAF Championship winner. Before the break, you were speaking as regards to coaching education. I would like to jump straight into the landscape of futsal presently in the US and in CONCACAF. What are your perspective on the present landscape of futsal in your country, as well as in the CONCACAF region?
Yeah, in the United States, the sport is booming. I mean, it's literally, you know, we've been kind of selling, I laugh, selling a vacuum cleaner and no one wanted to buy it. And then all of a sudden now we can't keep it in stock. So many clubs, academies are starting up. I think when Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, all these other great outdoor players came out and said, the reason I am who I am is that in my country, I grew up playing futsal. I think that was a big marketing tool. I think when we found out that futsal can make a better player technically, tactically, physically, and if you put those three together, you have more confidence. So your mental skills come together. You have so many different groups that are now becoming involved in futsal. However, there are still many technical directors of clubs in our country that do not understand futsal, so they can't teach it. so they don't believe it, so they don't provide it. And I think there are going to be younger people within those clubs that are going to be saying, well, that other club is doing a lot of futsal and they're doing so well. How come we're not doing it? And I think you're going to start seeing more clubs doing it. Even the coach of North Carolina, Anson Dorrance, who won the 94 World Championship with the women, coached Mia Hamm, Coach Kristen Lilly, Heather O'Reilly. He's won 22 national championships. He says that futsal is the game changer. So this wave is continuing to get bigger and bigger. I think the same thing is happening in the CONCACAF region. I think similar to the Solomon Islands, I think if more countries in our region are believing in what it can do, not only for the men, but also even with the women, what it can do for both boys and girls, I think you're going to see wonderful things coming out of our region. I think UEFA and Asia has done an awesome job because of their coaching education. I'd love to see CONCACAF build and do more futsal education in our region, and you'll see the trickle-down effect.
It's interesting you mention that because that is something Connie, since I've known him, has been a true advocate of. And I have seen it on our island as well. When he came in it would have been 2017. And since then, we have seen it grown from having 11 to 12 persons to now over 30. And you're quite correct. My parents being primary school teachers, education is very important to myself. So I understand exactly what you're saying. Before we continue, I have a question from one of our online viewers, Mr. Richard Goddard. And his question reads, basically, how many players in the current U.S. football soccer system have had futsal as a base to their individual development? Have the more senior players been willing to utilize futsal for their development, their personal development? I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Goddard, for your question. Can you take that, Mr. Tozer?
Thank you, Richard, for the question. If you look at Christian Pulisic, who currently plays for Chelsea, his father, Mark, grew up playing and coaching indoor soccer. When Mark went from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to Detroit, Michigan, Christian was about 8 or 9 years old. And on that team, they had several Brazilian guys, Everton Maria, Ricardinho, and the list goes on and on. Christian started playing more futsal in Detroit. And obviously, he's become a great player, and he had a futsal background. But I would imagine that maybe less than 1% of the players that are playing in Major League Soccer, and I could be totally wrong, maybe 5%, actually have futsal in their background. To me, that's not a good number, but on the other side, we got 95% more opportunities for people to be playing futsal. And I think you're going to see that. And I think when futsal gets into the inner city in our country to provide a different demographic, a different avenue, and maybe not towards basketball, and maybe not toward football, American football, but maybe towards futsal and then soccer, I think you're going to see a whole different pool of players open up. And I think that's what's going to happen in the CONCACAF region. I think as this thing continues to grow, you're going to have younger players becoming futsal. Because, you know, the path in Brazil is that from really 4-year-olds to 12, they play futsal, basically street soccer. And then at 12 years old, Santos, Botafogo, Flamengo, Fluminense, they all say to the Neymars, hey, come on, now you're going to go play outdoor. I see that happening more and more in our region.
We could go on and on.
We could.
I would, that being said, just as you said to me, I would definitely love to have you as a guest in the future. And thank you for taking this beautiful Easter Sunday afternoon to spend with us here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I must say that I'm sure that our viewers are very much happy to have a man of your stature speaking to us, taking your time to speak to us. the future of futsal, where do you see it?
Well, you know, we went from 12 countries in a World Cup in '96 to 28 cups and 28 teams. The next World Cup coming up. I think the sport is booming. What I love about it, not only the opportunity for players. By the way, when young people become referees in futsal, it makes a better outdoor referee, similar to how it can make a better outdoor player when you play futsal. The coaching opportunities, the management. I think there's a huge opportunity for players, referees, coaches, administrators, owners to get involved in this game. And unfortunately, you know, Jeffrey, starting tomorrow in this country, there's a 501c3, a charity called America Scores. They're starting a coaches webinar all week long with some of the biggest names in soccer in our country. I just so happen to be lucky. I'm kicking it off tomorrow. And I'm going to be talking about the opportunities of futsal. If they want to go listen to it, they can go to soccersummit.coachesclinic.com. And I will be on tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Time. And then all these other coaches are going to be on. But I think there's so much opportunity. I think once this pandemic is over, I think maybe the coaching style is going to change. Maybe they're not going to want so many players together on a big field. Maybe futsal is going to come out of this small-sided game. So I think the opportunity is great. I have to thank you, Jeffrey. You came on my show early on with Connie. I believe we're at 50,000 listeners at the moment. We are now over 200,000 listeners in 135 countries. So that's a World of Futsal podcast. I want to thank you for coming on your show. I want to wish all of you the very best in Trinidad and Tobago. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I pray that one day I'll be able to come to your beautiful country.
Before you go, I have to do two things. I have to put back up the accolades as we started off for those who were not there, and they start to understand the guest, the caliber of guests that we have with us. Mr. Keith Tozer, it has been an utmost pleasure having you. And secondly, is that when you get to Trinidad, you have to sign our branded Futsal 868 ball, and it will also be a gift to you. Since COVID-19 have us inside, we want to say thank you very much. So this is your gift from us to you. Don't make Connie.
But I have to come.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the key. That's the key. Don't make Connie too jealous. So we want to say thank you very much, Keith, for taking the time. We look forward to hearing from you in the not too distant future. Take care of yourself during this difficult time. To you and your family, we want to say God's richest blessings on this beautiful day. And always remember why we are alive. And thank you that God has shown you your purpose, and that purpose has connected you and I, that we can be able to continue to make an indelible mark wherever we go. So once again, on behalf of the Futsal Association of Trinidad Tobago, I want to say thank you very much to Mr. Keith Tozer. Thank you very much again, Keith. Is there anything you want to say before you leave?
Again, Jeffrey, thank you. You've done a wonderful job. Good luck to everybody in Trinidad. Be safe, be well, and I hope to see you very soon in your country.
Definitely. So before we go, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say thank you very much for joining us. It has been an utmost pleasure for you all to be here. And for those who don't know what you're looking at, I'm going to take a few seconds to remind you. So yeah, that wraps up the second episode of the Futsal 868 Corner. On behalf of myself, President of the Futsal Association of Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Geoffrey Edwards. My committee members, the coaches, and the staff of the men's national futsal team, as well as our family members. I'm going to say thank you very much for being a part of this program, taking the time out of your Sunday afternoon to spend with us. And as our tagline says, throughout this pandemic, we are always stronger together. I'm going to say God's richest blessings and safety, safety, safety. He is our Alpha and our Omega, our beginning and our end, and He will continue to see us through these situations. So do have a blessed day, and once again, many mercies. Bye for now. See you next week at 4 p.m. And be sure to watch the recap of this episode on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Keywords Futsal868. Do have a blessed afternoon.